All right, I'm going live now. Yes, I do. Constance says, Happy Saturday. Tomorrow is Pentecost. We've been talking about Pentecost. Pentecost is Constance's favorite uh, universal holiday. Maybe she'll share a few words with us tomorrow about Pentecost.
I'll just sound like a nutcase if I do, but it'll be brief if I do.
She'll treat it, and afterwards I'll set fire to the top of my head. That'll be worth a share, won't it? So, okay, we're reading Crowley's fabulous, detailed definition of magic from his 1920. What year did I claim? It was mostly written 1929, or at least when it was published. But he was writing it in Sicily. But anyway, we left off with point number 9 yesterday, which was a man who is doing his true will has the inertia of the universe to assist him. Now we've got to bite the bullet and overlook Crowley's use of personal pronouns and things like that. In Crowley's day, it was the accepted thing in language to refer to humans in general, mankind, as meaning everybody. So when Crowley says man has the right and he does this and he, believe me, Crowley was including every man and every woman in his use of language there. So don't get too upset about Crowley's use of language. So number 10, nature is a continuous phenomenon. I said phenomenon.
I said do.
Nature is a continuous phenomenon, though we do not know in all cases how things are connected. And then he gives an illustration. Human consciousness depends on the properties of protoplasm, the existence of which depends on innumerable physical conditions peculiar to this planet. And this planet is determined by the mechanical balance of the whole universe of matter. We may then say that our consciousness is causally connected with the remotest galaxies. Yet we do not know even how it arises from or with the molecular changes in the brain. Obviously, he gave this some very speedy thought. Number 11, science enables us to take advantage of the continuity of nature by the empirical application of certain principles whose interplay involves different orders of ideas connected with each other in a way beyond our present comprehension. And here's an illustration. We're able to light cities by rule of thumb methods. We do not know what consciousness is, or how it is connected with muscular action, or what electricity is, or how it's connected with the machines that generate it. And our methods depend on calculations involving mathematical ideas which have no correspondence in the universe as we know it. Number 12. Man is ignorant of the nature of his own being and powers. Even his idea of his limitations is based on experience of the past, and every step in his progress extends his empire. There is therefore no reason to assign theoretical limits to what he may be or to what he may do. Now remember, Crowley's describing magic and what magicians do and think. And here's an illustration of that. A generation ago, it was supposedly theoretically impossible that man should ever know the chemical composition of the fixed stars. It is known that our senses are adapted to receive only an infinitesimal fraction of the possible rates of vibration. Modern instruments have enabled us to detect some of these suprasensibles by indirect methods, and even to use their peculiar qualities in the service of man, as in the case of the rays that Hertz and Röntgen, okay, these are cosmic rays, okay, that are picked up by modern instruments. As Tyndall said, man might at any moment learn to perceive and utilize vibrations of all conceivable and inconceivable kinds. The question of magic is a question of discovering and employing hitherto unknown forces in nature. We know that they exist, and we cannot doubt the possibility of mental and physical instruments capable of bringing us into relation with them. He wrote this in 1923, 4, or 5. My, what examples he could use now. Okay. 13. Every man is more or less aware that his individuality comprises several orders of existence, even when he maintains that his subtler principles are merely symptomatic of changes in his gross vehicle. A similar order may be assumed to extend throughout nature. And he gives the illustration. One does not confuse the pain of a toothache with the decay which causes it. Inanimate objects are sensitive to certain physical forces, such as electrical and thermal conductivity, but neither in us nor in them, so far as we know, is there any direct conscious perception of these forces. Imperceptible influences are therefore associated with all material phenomena, and there is no reason why we should not work upon matter through these subtle energies as we do through their material basis. In fact, we use magnetic force to move iron and solar radiation to reproduce images. I guess the big point he's making here is there is nothing supernatural. There's many things unexplainable, but nothing is supernatural. It's just supernatural. 14. Man is capable of being and using anything which he perceives, for everything that he perceives is everything that he perceives is, in a certain sense, a part of his being. He may thus subjugate the whole universe of which he is conscious to his individual will. There is no outside of ourselves, ultimately. It's all in our heads. We just have no idea how big our heads are. Illustration. Man has used the idea of God to dictate his personal conduct, to obtain power over his fellows, to excuse his crimes, and for innumerable other purposes, including that of realizing himself as God. He has used the irrational and unreal conceptions of mathematics to help him in the construction of mechanical devices. He has used his moral force to influence the actions of even wild animals. He has employed poetic genius for political purposes. So man is capable of being and using anything which he perceives, for everything that he perceives is in a certain way, in a certain sense, part of his being. Okay. Wake up. 15. Every force in the universe is capable of being transformed into any other kind of force by using suitable means. There is thus an inexhaustible supply of any particular kind of force that we may need. Illustration. Heat may be transformed into light and power by using it to drive dynamos. The vibrations of air may be used to kill men by so ordering them in speech to inflame warlike passions. The hallucinations connected with the mysterious energies of sex result in the perpetuation of the species. Wow. 16. The application of any given force affects all the orders of being which exist in the object to which it is applied, whichever of those orders is directly affected. Illustration. If I strike a man with a dagger, his consciousness, not his body only, is affected by my act, although the dagger, as such, has no direct relation therewith. Similarly, the power of my thought may so work on the mind of another person as to produce far-reaching physical changes in him or in others through him. 17. A man may learn to use any force so as to serve any purpose by taking advantage of the above theorems. Illustration. A man may use a razor to make himself vigilant over his speech by using it to cut himself whenever he unguardedly uses, say, a chosen word. Crowley writes about that in a book called Liber 3. He may serve the same purpose by resolving that every incident in his life shall remind him of a particular thing, making every impression the starting point of a connection of a series of thoughts ending in that thing. He might also devote his whole energies to some particular object by resolving to do nothing at variance therewith, and to make every act turn to the advantage of that object. Okay, that Liber Velgorum, that Liber 3. Okay, and even in the Equinox volumes, he prints photographs of his arm or somebody's arm scarred or with scabs, cuts on his arm, to demonstrate that he uses technique. He vowed as a magical act of self-discipline that he wouldn't use the personal pronoun I for a day or something like that. And he takes a solemn vow. And then in daily conversation, he'll say, "Oh, yes, I'll take a cup of coffee. Oh," and when he slips and says says the word "I," he takes out a razor. He says it's a razor, and cuts a little cut on his arm. And after a while, the Pavlovian response is so strong that your body really doesn't want to get cut again. And so it takes only a little while for you to be intensely vigilant about every word that comes out of your mouth, because you don't want to cut your arm. When we were hippies, and we're still hippies, when we were hippies up in Oregon, we had days of fasting and put ourselves on sort of a hippie monastic disciplines. And we'd have days of silence. Tuesday will be a day of silence, and for 24 hours, we got along in life without saying a word. And I remember once I was doing pretty good with my day of silence, and we had gotten into my old Volkswagen bus to run an errand of some kind, and we're driving down a country road, and I was doing so good being silent and just listening to everyone else talk. And we were in the process of building outhouses for our little quarter-acre property that we had bought, and we were building our own cabin with the help of. Actually, we were watching our friends help us build the cabin. Anyway, there was literally a full-blown little building, little wooden building that someone just put by the side of the road. And after hours of successful silence, I found myself going, "Wow, that little building would make a great outhouse." Now, if I was doing that Liber 3, I would have slashed my arm for doing that. But, I'm digressing here. Years later, when I was actually a student a formal student at the time of Phyllis Seckler, I decided to do the same thing myself, and I got myself a little scalpel that with a cover on it, and I could keep it with me. And every time I did something, I think I tried the personal pronoun I for a weekend, and I was teaching preschool at the time, and so on Monday I had to go to preschool with all these about 20 little tiny Band-Aids on my arm, and the kids said, "Wow, Mr. DuQuette, well, what happened to your arm?" I said, I got a little careless over the weekend." That was a digression. I'm sorry. I'll do number 18, then we have to stop for today. He may attract himself to himself any force in the universe by making himself a fit receptacle for it, establishing a connection with it, and arranging conditions so that its nature compels it to flow toward him. Illustration. If I want pure water to drink, I dig a well in a place where there's underground water. I prevent it from leaking away, and I arrange to take advantage of the water's accordance with the laws of hydrostatics to fill it. Oh, here, I'll do this one because this is great. Man's sense of himself as separate from and opposed to the universe is a bar to his conducting its currents. It insulates him. Man's sense of himself as separate from and opposed to the universe is a bar to his conducting its currents. It insulates him. And Constance may talk a little about this tomorrow about Pentecost. Man's sense of himself as separate from and opposed to the universe is a bar to his conducting its currents. Can you imagine how opposite to this fact is the philosophy that for over 2,000 years has dominated Christian thought? How whole cultures, societies, generation after generation have had this fundamental misconception in their minds that they are separated from God, separated from the universal current, and needing some kind of extraordinary supernatural rescue. Man's sense of himself as separate from and opposed to the universe is a bar to his conducting its currents. Illustration. A popular leader is most successful when he forgets himself and remembers only the cause. Self-seeking engenders jealousies and schism. When the organs of the body assert their presence otherwise than by silent satisfaction, it is a sign that they are diseased. The single exception is the organ of reproduction. Yet even in this case, its self-assertion bears witness to its dissatisfaction with itself, since it cannot fill its function until completed by its counterpart in another organism. And on that piece of wisdom, we're going to end for today. Hopefully we'll get Constance here to... But of course, no, I'm not promising anything, dear. No, and neither is... I don't know if you heard that, but she says that's how our marriage has been, believe it or not. Yes, even in our homemade wedding ceremony that we did 55 years ago, part of the ceremony we constructed had no promises whatsoever. Right, dear?
No promises.
No promises. So, constantly on borrowed time. So, until tomorrow, for Sunday school, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is
the law. Love under will.
Bye-bye.